Welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a highly relevant and deeply practical set of insights, all focused entirely on AI video scams.
Yeah.
You've probably heard the buzzword, deepfakes thrown around a lot lately. Usually, it's in the context of like political campaigns or big celebrity scandals.
Yeah, the high-profile stuff.
Exactly. But what we're looking at today, it completely strips away all that theoretical tech bro jargon. We're looking at the immediate, terrifying reality of how these tools are being weaponized against just everyday people like you and me.
It's a huge shift.
It really is. So we're going to break down the exact mechanics of how these scams are orchestrated. We'll get into the deep-seated psychological triggers they exploit, the specific targets they go after, and most importantly, the practical zero-trust steps you need to take to protect yourself.
Because that's the core of it, right?
Yeah, because the baseline reality we're dealing with right now is that seeing is absolutely no longer believing. I mean, just imagine getting a video call from your partner or maybe your child. They're in a hospital, the lighting is harsh, they look frantic, they have a visible injury, and they are begging you to pay a copay or a sudden legal fee so they can get treatment.
Terrifying.
Or, on the professional side, imagine a video message from your company's CEO. They're sitting in their recognizable office demanding you authorize an urgent, highly confidential wire transfer to, say, close an acquisition.
And it looks flawless.
That's the thing. In both scenarios, the person on the screen looks exactly like them. The voice has the exact same timbre, the same regional accent, the same, familiar pauses. But it is entirely fabricated, generated by artificial intelligence in a matter of minutes, specifically designed to just bypass your logic and drain your bank account.
It's a phenomenal shift in landscape of fraud. And what is so striking about this, when you really look at the anatomy of these attacks, is the juxtaposition between the technology and the psychology.
Yeah. How so?
Well, the technology, the generative adversarial networks, the real-time audio cloning algorithms, the neural rendering, it's incredibly modern. I mean, it is the bleeding edge of computer science. But the scam itself,
The actual execution.
right, the execution of the fraud, it relies on the most ancient, primitive, emotional manipulation tactics in the book. We're essentially looking at a hyper-modern digital delivery system for the exact same traps grifters have used for centuries.
So just putting a high-tech mask on an old con.
Exactly. They are hacking our baseline human empathy, our deference to authority, and our biological response to fear. We're going to get into the specific mechanics of these traps today, but it's crucial to keep in mind how your own brain processes reality. Because the fundamental issue here is that the biological metrics you have relied on your entire life to establish trust, recognizing a face and hearing a voice, they've been fundamentally compromised.
That is the core of it, yeah. We are dealing with the technological override of human instinct. So let's get into the actual anatomy of a deepfake. What is the architecture of this threat?
Okay, so at a basic level, we are talking about media where a real person's face is seamlessly mapped onto an actor's body.
Right.
Their specific voice is cloned, and they are puppeteered to say things they never actually said, often placed in completely artificial environments.
So let's be critical here for a second, because when we talk about seamless mapping and voice cloning, is it really that perfect? Because I think a lot of people listening might still have this image of the early clunky deepfakes from, 5 years ago?
Yeah, the ones where the head looked like a floating potato on a mismatched neck.
Exactly. The potato heads. Is that still a thing?
No, and that is a very dangerous misconception to hold on to. The technology has evolved at a blistering pace. We are no longer talking about something that takes a Hollywood visual effects studio 6 months and a massive render farm to produce.
How fast are we talking?
The speed of generation is arguably the most alarming factor here. Scammers are now utilizing off-the-shelf, incredibly user-friendly software. They can input a relatively small sample size of audio, sometimes just 3 to 5 seconds of a clean voice recording.
Wait, 3 to 5 seconds, that's it?
That's it. And the AI can extrapolate the entire phonetic range of that person from that tiny clip. It maps the cadence, the breath intervals, the pitch. And for the visual aspect, they use face-swapping technology that operates in near real time.
Wow.
This isn't a team of hackers in a basement writing complex code. It's a fraudster sitting at a laptop with a user interface that looks as simple as a basic video editing app. And they're processing the synthetic media fast enough to use on a live video call.
Just a few minutes to steal an identity. That completely alters the threat landscape, doesn't it? It allows for mass production. It turns bespoke fraud into an assembly line.
It really does.
And that brings us to the 4-step methodology these scammers use. The source material outlines this highly structured playbook. Step 1 is data collection, scraping the internet for high-quality photos and videos of the target.
Right.
Step 2, feeding that into the AI to clone the face and voice. Step 3, fabricating the narrative, the fake emergency, or the urgent corporate mandate. And Step 4, trapping the target in an emotional chokehold so they act without thinking.
The emotional chokehold is the key.
I actually got a text message last week from a random number claiming to be my CEO. It was the classic, I'm in a meeting, I need you to buy some gift cards for a client routine.
Oh yeah, the gift card scam?
Obviously, it was just text, but even then, for a fraction of a second, my heart rate spiked. If that had been a flawless video of his face on my screen, perfectly mimicking his usual demanding tone, the compliance rate for that kind of scam would skyrocket.
Absolutely, because the video element removes the friction of doubt.
Yeah.
But let's look closer at step 1 of that playbook, the data collection.
Okay, let's break that down.
The entire operation is predicated on the scammer having access to a robust beta set to train their model. And the reality is, we are volunteering that data.
You're just handing it over.
We really are. We have spent the last 15 years building a culture of hyper-documentation on social media. Every vlog, every high-definition selfie, every Instagram story where you are talking to the camera, that is all training data.
It's all just sitting there.
We are freely distributing our biometric markers across public servers. If an attacker wants to clone your voice, they don't have to hack your phone. They just need to pull the audio from a video of you giving a toast at a wedding that your cousin uploaded to YouTube.
Oh, wow.
The scammer's supply chain relies entirely on our collective lack of digital privacy.
Right, so we are essentially subsidizing their R&D just by participating in modern online culture. That's a grim way to look at it, but it's true. Once they have that biometric data, they move to the fabrication and the trap.
Steps 3 and 4.
Exactly. The scenarios we mentioned, the kid in the hospital asking for immediate cash, or the CEO demanding a confidential wire transfer, they're designed with one singular objective: to make the target unequivocally believe the artificial reality presented on the screen.
And if the target believes it, the scam succeeds.
But why is the brain so willing to believe a scream? Even if the request is slightly out of character, why does our critical thinking apparatus just completely power down?
To understand that, we really have to look at the psychology of the scam. We have to look at how these fraudsters are engineering a cognitive bypass.
A cognitive bypass. I like that term.
It comes down to a foundational equation of human interaction. Face plus voice equals instant trust.
Face plus voice equals instant trust.
Because the medium is high-definition video and crisp audio, the victim's brain automatically processes it as reality. We are biologically wired through millions of years of evolution to rely on these specific sensory inputs.
Right, way before screens existed.
Exactly. Before written language, our survival depended on instant visual and auditory recognition. Is this person a member of my tribe? Is that the voice of my offspring in danger? The brain evolved to make those assessments in milliseconds, long before the slower, analytical parts of the frontal lobe get involved.
There's a primal reaction.
Totally primal. When an AI perfectly spoofs those ancient cues, the logical defense mechanisms are completely bypassed. The primal brain shouts, "This is real, this is your child, act now," before the logical brain can even begin to ask questions about compression artifacts or IP addresses.
So it's essentially an evolutionary glitch that the technology is exploiting. That baseline trust is established instantly. And then, according to the source material, the scammer layers on the manipulation using 3 specific psychological pillars: urgency, fear, and emotion. Let's dissect these.
We definitely should, because recognizing the emotional manipulation is just as important as recognizing the digital manipulation.
The first pillar is urgency. The underlying message is always, do this immediately or the window closes. Why is the ticking clock such a necessary component for the scammer?
Because latency is the enemy of the fraudster. If they give you time to breathe, they lose. Urgency creates a manufactured crisis that forces the victim into a purely reactive state.
You can't think, you just do.
Right. If someone says, "I need you to wire this money by next week," you have the luxury of time. You can check your accounts, you can call a secondary contact, you could literally sleep on it. Urgency strips away that luxury. It shuts down the executive function of the brain that governs analytical thought and risk assessment.
It's forced tunnel vision.
Exactly. When you are told that every single second counts, pausing to verify the request feels like a dangerous indulgence. The scammer knows that if you stop to think, the illusion shatters. So they keep the tempo incredibly high to ensure you stay off balance.
It's the artificial creation of momentum.
Mm.
And right alongside that momentum is the second pillar, which is fear. The threats are severe. Your bank account is going to be frozen. The police are on their way. We are going to lose this multi-million-dollar acquisition. It's related to urgency, but fear hits the amygdala directly.
It triggers the fight or flight response.
Yes. When you are operating under intense manufactured fear, your peripheral vision literally narrows. You get cognitive tunnel vision focused entirely on mitigating the immediate threat.
Precisely. Fear paralyzes rationality.
Mm-hmm.
The scammer is playing a very specific game here. They introduce a catastrophic threat, and in the exact same breath, they offer the exclusive immediate solution to that threat.
Wow, sell the disease, sell the cure.
They engineer the panic and they sell the relief.
Yeah.
And the price of that relief is whatever they are asking you to transfer. But while fear and urgency are powerful, the third pillar is perhaps the most insidious, and that is emotion. Specifically, the weaponization of love and empathy. This is where the deepfake transitions from a clever digital trick into something truly monstrous. They are using your own capacity for love against you.
It is entirely predatory. I mean, put yourself in that scenario for a second. You're at home, it's late, the phone rings, and it's a video call from your child. The screen flickers to life, and it's them. They look terrified, they are crying, they're sitting in what looks like a sterile room saying they've been in an accident in a foreign country.
It's a nightmare scenario.
And they need thousands of dollars wired to a clinic immediately or they won't get surgery. The flood of cortisol and adrenaline in your system in that moment is staggering. You are not going to be sitting back, squinting at the screen, analyzing the pixel density around their jawline to see if it's an AI composite. You are looking at your child in agony.
You're just a parent trying to save your kid.
That emotional hijacking is the core of why this works. It's a flawless, storm-manipulated biological trust, manufactured urgency, induced fear, and weaponized love.
And this is exactly why simply telling people to be careful online is a woefully inadequate defense. You can have all the cognitive training in the world, but when your nervous system is completely hijacked by that level of manufactured trauma, your logic center shut down.
It's physical.
It really is. Understanding these mechanics conceptually while you are calm is the only way to build resilience for when the adrenaline hits. Now, if we move past the mechanics and the psychology, we have to look at the application. Who are they targeting, and whose faces are they stealing to do it?
Right, the faces of the fraud. The source breaks this down into two distinct categories of impersonation. The first one is what they call the celebrity mirage.
The celebrity mirage.
Scammers are heavily utilizing the faces and voices of extremely famous people. The logic here is straightforward. Celebrities come with an immense prepackaged level of public trust. It allows the scammer to cast a very wide net. We see this constantly with fake investment opportunities.
Oh, all over social media.
Right. A famous actor or a tech billionaire seemingly endorsing a new cryptocurrency trading platform. Or a giveaway scam where they say, send a little bit of Bitcoin to a specific wallet and you'll receive double the amount back.
And people fall for it because it looks so real.
The execution is flawless. The celebrity's cadence, their micro-expressions, it all matches perfectly. But they never endorsed it. They were never even in the room.
The underlying mechanism here relies on the halo effect and parasocial relationship.
Okay, let's unpack that. The halo effect.
Even though we know logically that an actor who plays a brilliant scientist on television does not actually hold a degree in advanced economics, the halo effect dictates that our positive feelings about their on-screen persona bleed into our assessment of their real-world credibility.
So if we like them, we trust them with everything.
We assume that because we like them, they are trustworthy in all domains.
Yeah.
And the parasocial aspect, the one-sided relationship where fans feel intimately connected to a celebrity because they consume their content daily, that supercharges that trust.
It feels like a friend giving you a tip.
Exactly. Scammers are effectively strip mining the brand equity and the goodwill that a public figure has spent decades building. And they're using it as a shortcut to bypass the skepticism of a massive audience.
It's scalable deception. But while the celebrity scams are about casting a wide net to steal relatively small amounts from a lot of people, the second category is more like a sniper rifle. It's what the source labels as Business Email Compromise 2.0 or BEC 2.0.
This is the really dangerous one for organizations.
This is the corporate threat. And it involves the impersonation of a boss, a CFO, or a CEO. Let's really map out how this works because the stakes here are astronomical. An employee, let's say a mid-level finance manager, gets a video call. It's the CEO.
I look stressed.
Very stressed. The CEO is in a hotel room, and they tell the employee, "We are in the final hour of a highly confidential corporate acquisition. I need you to bypass the standard vendor protocol and transfer 50 lakh immediately to this escrow account."
50 lakh.
And just to put that into perspective for everyone listening, 50 lakh represents a massive sum of money. We're talking about 5 million in local currency. It is an entirely business-altering amount of capital. And the CEO explicitly says, "Do not discuss this with anyone. It violates an NDA."
This scenario exploits a completely different but equally powerful psychological lever. It's corporate power dynamics and the culture of unthinking compliance.
The pressure to perform.
Exactly. In many high-pressure corporate environments, employees are implicitly and sometimes explicitly rewarded for moving quickly and not bothering the executive suite with bureaucratic friction. If the CEO contacts a mid-level manager directly, bypassing 3 layers of management, it creates a potent cocktail of emotions for that employee.
I can imagine. You'd feel so important.
There is intense pressure to perform, fear of derailing a massive deal, and often a dangerous amount of ego involved. The employee feels chosen. They feel like they have been brought into the inner circle to execute a secret mission.
And the NDA part is brilliant in an evil way.
By demanding secrecy under the guise of an NDA, the scammer perfectly isolates the target. They sever the employee's ability to peer review the request. And because it's a video call, the employee thinks, "Well, I'm looking right at him, it must be real." Companies have lost tens of millions of dollars really in single transactions because a dedicated employee was just trying to do a good job for their boss.
It is the ultimate evolution of social engineering. But let's push back on this a bit. If the technology is this good, if it can hijack our biology, exploit our empathy, and weaponize our corporate hierarchies, are we just sitting ducks?
Not entirely.
Is there no way to spot the artificiality of the video itself? Because surely the rendering isn't 100% perfect 100% of the time.
It is not perfect, no. The AI still leaves digital fingerprints, provided you know exactly what to look for.
Okay, what are we looking for?
There are visual and auditory glitches that occur because of the immense computational load required to render a fake face and synthesize a voice in real time over a network connection. For instance, you might notice unnatural lip movements or a slight mismatch between the audio and the video.
Let's talk about that latency, because that audio-video mismatch is fascinating. It triggers that classic uncanny valley response. It's that deeply unsettling feeling you get when you look at something that is almost perfectly human, but your subconscious registers that it's just slightly off.
Yes, the uncanny valley.
The audio might be a fraction of a millisecond out of sync with the lip movements. The conscious brain might rationalize it and say, "Oh, it's just a bad Wi-Fi connection." But the subconscious brain, which has spent a lifetime observing human mouths form specific consonant sounds, knows something is wrong.
It feels like watching a poorly dubbed film.
Right, but the discrepancy is microscopic. Why does the AI struggle so much with that specific synchronization?
Because it is an incredibly complex, real-time processing task. Think about what's happening. The scammer speaks into their microphone. The AI has to capture that audio, translate it into the target's voice profile, analyze the phonetic sounds being made, map those sounds to the corresponding muscle movements of the target's 3D facial mesh,
That's a lot of steps.
render the lighting and shadows on that mesh to match the background video, and then stream it over the internet. Even with massive processing power, doing all of that instantaneously creates a bottleneck. That bottleneck results in latency. The lips move, but the phones don't perfectly match the shape of the mouth, or the audio arrives a split second late.
Okay, so audio sync is one. And what about the visual artifacts? Things like odd blinking patterns. I know early deepfakes really struggled with eyes.
Yes, the blinking anomaly is a classic tell, and it fundamentally comes down to training data bias.
Training data bias.
When a generative adversarial network is trained to learn what a specific person looks like, it scrapes thousands of photos of them. But human behavior dictates that people generally only post photos where their eyes are open.
Oh, that makes so much sense. We delete the photos where we are mid-blink.
Exactly. So the AI has a massive data set on what the target's open eyes look like, but very little data on the precise biomechanics of their eyelids closing and opening. Consequently, when the AI tries to animate a blink during a live video, it often looks robotic. It might blink too frequently, too rarely, or the eyelids might seem to dissolve rather than physically close.
You also see issues around the edges, right? Background blur or unnatural lighting.
Right. The AI is directing all of its computational resources to rendering the face. The periphery often gets neglected. You might see the edges of the fake face jittering or blurring where it meets the real hair or the collar of the shirt.
Like a bad green screen.
Or the lighting on the face might appear totally uniform, like a studio ring light, while the actual background of the video shows a dimly lit room with a single lamp. The physics of the ambient light don't interact correctly with the synthetic face.
But wait, isn't giving people a visual checklist almost dangerous?
How do you mean?
Well, if we tell people, look for the weird blinking and the blurry edges, aren't we just setting them up to fail next month? The algorithms are self-correcting. If the AI is improving daily, telling people to rely on spotting a latency issue might give them a completely false sense of security when the technology inevitably solves that latency problem.
You are absolutely right, and that is the chilling caveat we have to acknowledge from the source material. Relying purely on visual detection is a depreciating asset.
It's an expiration date on our defense.
It is a defense strategy with a rapidly approaching expiration date. The visual checklist might save you from a lazy scammer using an outdated model today, but it will be entirely useless against a state-of-the-art model tomorrow. The technology is moving vastly faster than our biological ability to spot the rendering errors.
So what do we do?
That is why we have to shift our focus away from the pixels and toward the context. The situational red flags are far more reliable than the visual ones.
The context is the glitch. I love that way of framing it. If you are on a video call with your grandfather and the video quality is flawless, perfect lighting, perfect lip sync, the voice is completely accurate, but he is suddenly asking you to drive to a pharmacy, buy $5,000 worth of Apple gift cards, and read the serial numbers to him over the phone to bail him out of a sudden tax crisis.
The request itself is the anomaly.
Yes. The scenario is the red flag, regardless of how hyper-realistic the video looks. Legitimate institutions and real family emergencies don't typically demand resolution via retail gift cards or untraceable cryptocurrency transfers to foreign wallets.
Exactly. The logical inconsistency of the demand must override the visual perfection of the medium. We can no longer trust our eyes and ears to verify truth.
It's wild to even say that out loud.
Because our biological senses can be definitively and consistently deceived by this technology, we have to change our fundamental approach to reality and communication. We need a completely new framework for trust. And that brings us to the most critical part of this entire discussion, the defense playbook. How do we operate in a world where seeing is no longer believing?
This requires a massive paradigm shift. The core takeaway, the golden rule that you have to internalize moving forward is this. Video is not proof. Verification is proof.
We really need to dwell on how significant a shift that is.
It's huge.
Since the invention of photography and moving pictures in the late 19th century, human society has operated on the foundational assumption that a photograph or a video is an objective record of reality.
If it was on film, it happened.
It has been the absolute gold standard of evidence in our justice system, in journalism, and in our interpersonal relationships. We have spent over a century culturally conditioning ourselves to believe that video equals truth.
And now we have to undo all of that.
To survive in the current digital landscape, you must actively and aggressively unlearn that belief. You must fundamentally accept that a video on a screen is no longer a physical record of light hitting a lens. It is just data. And data is infinitely malleable.
So what does that look like in practice?
Therefore, you must establish a zero-trust policy for any digital communication that involves a demand for money, a transfer of sensitive information, or a request for urgent action. You must never, ever execute an irreversible action based solely on the evidence of a video, no matter how convincing it is.
It's moving from a society of implicit trust to a society of active, independent verification. Let's look at how this golden rule applies to real-world scenarios. The text gives us specific if-then protocols. Scenario 1. If your boss asks for an urgent money transfer via a video call or a voice memo, what is the immediate action?
The immediate action is to break the channel.
Break the channel. Explain that.
You do not reply to the message in the app where you received it. You do not continue the conversation on the video call. You hang up. Then you pick up a different device or open a different application, and you contact your boss directly using a known, pre-verified saved phone number.
So you force the conversation somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You ask them directly, did you just authorize a 50 lakh transfer? By breaking the channel, you force the communication out of the environment that the scammer controls and back into a secure, verified pathway.
Okay, scenario 2. If a relative claims an emergency on a video call. This is the hardest one because breaking the channel feels unnatural. If you are looking at your partner and they are crying and begging for help, Hanging up the phone feels like a profound betrayal of your instincts.
It feels terrible, but it is absolutely necessary. You have to endure the discomfort of hanging up. If you cannot bring yourself to disconnect, you must immediately use a second device to call their actual saved phone number.
Because the scammer isn't actually on their phone.
Right. Scammers often use spoof numbers or hacked secondary social media accounts to initiate these video calls. If you call your partner's actual cell phone number on the main network, you will almost always bypass the scammer's infrastructure entirely. You will likely connect to your partner who is sitting at their desk at work, completely safe, having no idea that a digital clone of them is currently terrorizing their family.
That's such a relief to hear, actually. Okay, scenario 3. If a celebrity promotes a high-yield investment or a crypto scheme in a video on your social feed.
Independent verification. Do not click the link provided in the video description. Do not click the link in the comments.
Never click the link.
Go to an independent search engine, find the celebrity's verified official website or their heavily vetted primary channels, and see if the promotion is listed there. Spoiler alert, it almost never is. If a massive wealth-building opportunity is real, it won't only exist in a grainy video circulating on a secondary social media platform.
And finally, scenario 4. If you get an unknown video call demanding any sort of action or information,
Treat it with extreme prejudice. Independently confirm their identity through a completely separate trusted channel. The overarching theme across all these scenarios is that you can never use the evidence provided by the scammer to prove that the scammer is legitimate. You have to step outside the blast radius of their narrative to find the truth.
basic investigative logic applied to daily life. Now, those are reactive measures, but the source material also gives us proactive, highly actionable steps you can take today to build a defensive perimeter around yourself and your network. Let's walk through these 5 steps. Step 1 is enabling two-step verification, or 2FA, on absolutely every account you own. Why is this critical in the context of deepfakes?
Because scammers don't always spoof your number from the outside. Sometimes they want to operate from the inside.
Oh, account takeover.
Yes. If they can hack your actual WhatsApp or Instagram account, the scam becomes infinitely more believable to your contacts because the call is coming from your legitimate, verified profile. Two-factor authentication creates a massive barrier to account takeover. Even if they clone your voice and use it to trick a customer service rep into resetting your password, 2FA requires a secondary physical confirmation, like a prompt on your physical device, that the scammer cannot access remotely. It protects the integrity of your digital communication channels.
That is step 1. Step 2 is perhaps my favorite defense mechanism because it is so wonderfully analog. Set a family code word for emergencies. Let's expand on how this actually breaks the scammer's operational loop.
It is brilliant in its simplicity. A family code word is a pre-agreed upon, highly specific word or short phrase that your family commits to using only in the event of a genuine crisis.
Give me an example of a good one.
It needs to be a non sequitur. It shouldn't be something guessable like help or emergency or a pet's name that could be found on your public social media. It needs to be something entirely random like blue pineapple or rusty hubcap.
Blue pineapple. Okay, I like that. Here's how it plays out. You get the terrifying video call. It looks like your daughter. She sounds like your daughter. She is claiming she's been arrested and needs bail money instantly. You take a breath. You interrupt the flow of the panic and you say, okay, I hear you. What is the family code word?
And then you wait.
What happens to the scammer in that moment?
The illusion instantly shatters. The scammer controlling the AI model does not have access to your private offline conversations. They are operating from a script designed to induce panic. When you introduce a random required variable like a code word, you force a latency into the interaction. The scammer doesn't know the word.
They can't guess blue pineapple.
They will try to deflect. The AI clone might suddenly say, "Dad, I'm too panicked to remember. Please just send the money." Or they might try to manufacture anger to regain control of the dynamic.
How can you ask me that right now?
Exactly. But the moment they cannot produce the phrase blue pineapple, the spell is broken. You have mathematically proven that the person on the screen is not your family member. It is a foolproof manual override that completely short-circuits a technological deception.
Blue pineapple saves the day. I love it. Okay, moving on to step 3. This is the corporate equivalent of the code word. Create a strict payment verification policy in your company. If you work in an environment where money moves, this is non-negotiable to stop the BEC 2.0 attacks.
It has to be formal.
There must be an ironclad rule woven into the corporate culture that no transfer of funds or sensitive data above a specific threshold can ever be authorized based solely on an email, a voice memo, or a video call.
It has to require a secondary asynchronous sign-off. It could be an in-person confirmation, a multi-party phone call on a verified bridge, or a dual authorization requirement in the banking software itself.
Takes the pressure off the employee.
The brilliance of this policy is that it removes the psychological burden from the targeted employee. When the fake CEO calls and screams for an immediate secret wire transfer, the employee doesn't have to bravely stand up to their boss. They just have to point to the manual.
Sorry, system won't let me.
They can say, "I understand the urgency, sir, but the compliance software physically requires the CFO's secondary authorization token for anything over 10 lakh. The scammer's urgency tactic hits a bureaucratic brick wall. A well-designed system protects the individual from having to make a high-stakes, fear-driven decision in the moment.
Systemic defense. Step 4 brings us back to something we touched on earlier, but it requires a real behavioral change. Share less sensitive info on public social media.
This is a tough one for people.
We need to practice aggressive digital hygiene. You have to start asking yourself before every post, does the entire open internet really need a high-definition, uncompressed video of my face? Does the public really need a 10-minute crystal-clear audio recording of my voice talking about my daily routine?
You are managing your own threat surface. By locking down your privacy settings to friends and family only, by restricting public access to your vlogs, and by being highly selective about what you upload, you are actively starving the AI models of the high-quality training data they need to clone you.
If they don't have the data, they can't build the mask.
If a scammer targets you, but they can only find a blurry photo from 10 years ago and no clean audio, they cannot build a convincing deepfake. They will move on to an easier target, who has documented every waking moment of their life in 4K resolution on a public profile. Make yourself a hard target.
Make yourself a hard target. And finally, step 5. Educate your family and your network about AI scams. You cannot treat this knowledge as proprietary. You listening to this right now have a massive advantage because you understand the mechanics of the threat. But you need to act as a node of information for the people around you. Sit down with your parents, your grandparents, or anyone in your life who might not be technically savvy.
This is crucial, particularly for older generations who grew up in an era where the news was delivered by a trusted anchor on a television screen, and video was an unassailable representation of the truth.
They trust the screen way more than we do.
Their baseline level of implicit trust in media is much higher. You need to sit down with them, gently explain the golden rule that video is no longer proof, and establish that family code word together.
It's a team effort.
It is a collective defense strategy. You cannot build a fortress if your front gate is locked, but the side window is wide open. We have to protect our entire networks.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today, and we've gone deep into the architecture of a very modern nightmare. Let's do a final synthesis of these concepts. Deepfake scams are devastating, not just because the technology is advanced, but because they are precision engineered to short-circuit human critical thinking.
They hack the brain.
They use the face plus voice equation to establish instant, unwarranted trust. They layer that trust with extreme emotional manipulation, urgency, fear, and weaponized empathy to create a psychological trap that paralyzes logic. Whether it is a famous actor pushing a crypto wallet, a corporate executive demanding an unverified wire transfer of 50 lakh, or the terrifying image of a loved one in distress, the underlying mechanism of the fraud is exactly the same.
But the empowering takeaway here is that you are not defenseless. The technology will continue to improve. The uncanny valley latency issues will be solved. The visual glitches will disappear. But the fundamental logic of defense does not rely on visual perfection.
Verification is proof.
By adopting the golden rule that verification is proof, not video, you seize control of the dynamic. By breaking the communication channel, implementing two-factor authentication, using family code words, enforcing rigid corporate payment protocols, and starving the scammers of your public data, you render their technological advantage virtually useless. You shift the power dynamic back in your favor entirely.
We hope this deep dive has equipped you with the practical armor you need to navigate what is undoubtedly a very treacherous new digital reality. But before we close this out, there is a broader implication to all of this that we need to address. Something for you to mull over.
The focus today has been intensely tactical. It has been a survival guide for protecting your bank account and your immediate emotional well-being from fraudsters right now. But if we pull the camera back and look at the long-term trajectory of this technology,
Where's this going?
if we are truly crossing the threshold into an era where any video, any audio recording, any photograph can be perfectly, seamlessly, and undetectably fabricated by anyone with an internet connection, what happens to our society's historical record?
That is a staggering question. The implications for the concept of truth itself.
Exactly. If seeing is no longer believing, how do future generations trust the video evidence of political speeches? How do they trust the footage of global conflicts, of human rights abuses, or of historical milestones?
And on a micro level, how will we trust our own digital memories?
If a scammer can perfectly fake a video of your child in a hospital today to steal money, a bad actor could fake a video of an event that never occurred, inject it into a social feed, and alter the cultural consensus of an entire population tomorrow.
Rewriting reality.
When the very concept of visual truth is destabilized, it shakes the foundational pillars of journalism, the justice system, and our shared objective reality. We are going to have to figure out, collectively, what constitutes proof in the next decade. It is a profound philosophical challenge to consider the next time you are scrolling through a video feed, passively absorbing visual information as absolute truth.
That is a deeply provocative thought to end on, and it highlights exactly why understanding the mechanics of this technology is about so much more than just avoiding a scam. It's about maintaining our grip on reality itself. Thank you for taking the time to explore this with us today. Remember the rule, verify everything. Stay vigilant out there.